Okay.
All right, guys. So this is John Joplin, and he is a local historian here. That's kind of what he does for fun, actually. And you've met him in another video before. Some of you have, if you were here last semester. So today you can see the person we're going to be learning about is Fredrick Douglass. And so we're going to let Mr. Joplin tell us about Fredrick Douglass, and then I'll ask him a few questions. So can you just give us a little bit of an idea about when did he live and why is he famous?
Yes, I'll sure do my best. He was born in the early 1800s, and then he lived most of the 1800s, most of the 19th century. And he is famous for being involved in the movement against slavery. And then he is also famous because he was very involved after the Civil War in promoting the rights of African American people that were in the United States.
Okay. So if he was born then, was he born as a slave or was he born free?
He actually was born as a slave. He was born as a slave. His mother passed away when he was about 7 years old. And he actually believed and came to realize that slavery was wrong. And so he actually ran away. He wrote a book about that. He was a slave. He was in the state of Maryland. He ran away and went north. And then there was a woman that was she was a free woman. And he wound up, they married, had children. And but the short answer to your question is yes, he was a slave, but he ran away, and then he was a free man after that.
Okay, so did people on the Underground Railroad help him run away?
He actually made plans about running away. There were some people that helped him. I don't know that it was any people that were formally involved with the Underground Railroad, but there were similar people that helped him. In fact, he got in a canoe and he was going to use the North Star, which I'm sure that your students all know that the North Star is always to the north, and he was going to use that to go north. And then there were people that off and on that helped him, would give him food and do things like that. But yes,
Yeah.
he received a lot of help.
We learned a little bit about the North Star and the Underground Railroad when we learned about Harriet Tubman. But I'm thinking that there were so many people that were escaping and finding freedom in the North that just because he did and she did doesn't mean that she helped him, right? So she did
Right.
not necessarily help him.
Exactly. That's right. And one thing that helped Fredrick Douglass a lot was that he knew how to read, and he had been taught to read and write. He was enslaved at a location, and there was a woman in the house that taught him to read and write. In fact, some of the people that were, that were at overseeing the slaves were angry about that she had taught him to read and write, but that actually helped him a lot. And he was able to use some of those skills when he escaped, which of course goes to show you can never have too much knowledge, or, you can never learn too much, but he could indeed read and write. That helped him a lot.
Did he ever use his ability to write to make a difference in his community? Because we're doing that in social studies, but did he ever do that?
Yes, he did very much. In fact, what he did was he was an orator. He would go and talk about the way he was mistreated as a slave, and he would be up front. He would say there were some enslaved people that had been treated much worse than him, but he would tell about some of his experiences and the things he saw that were wrong. And then later he began to write. He would write articles that appeared in the newspaper, and he wrote books. He wrote a nonfiction book also. And also what he did was there was a big movement. People knew instinctively that slavery was wrong. Some people knew it because of the Bible. Some people knew it just instinctively. there were some people that were abolitionists, which is what they called people against slavery. They felt like they did not support the Constitution even because they considered it a pact with evil. And they said they could not support the Constitution of the U.S. because it involved slavery. But Fredrick Douglass, he actually read the Constitution itself. He actually read the Declaration of Independence, and he came to the conclusion that the Constitution did, in fact, oppose slavery. And he came to that conclusion by studying that in the Declaration of Independence, which, of course, the Declaration of Independence says all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights, including the right to life, the right to liberty, and the right to pursuit of happiness. And he actually wrote about these things. He wrote books, he wrote newspaper articles, and they persuaded people. And then during the Civil War, some people fought for the Union because they wanted the enslaved people to be freed. And some of them learned about these issues from things that Fredrick Douglass wrote. And in fact, he became known, Abraham Lincoln knew of him. In fact, one time at the White House, he appeared, and Abraham Lincoln saw him at a distance when he was coming in, and the people at the front, he was letting them know he was there. And Abraham Lincoln spotted him across the room and said, "Oh, there's my friend Douglass."
Very cool. Well, I think that pretty much sums up what we have time for Fredrick Douglass, and we're going to go in and start a math lesson thinking about perimeter. That
Yes.
we could do. I just don't want to leave it if there's any other major quotes by him or major things that we would just not want to miss. Is there anything else that we should know about him?
There's just that he spent his whole life, involved in trying to help African-American people. He spent his whole life trying to ensure that the United States of America is a country with liberty and justice for all, and with a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The one thing that I would add is that he got a lot of his inspiration from the book of Isaiah and some information from Jeremiah. He studied the Bible his whole life. He was very interested in that. And some of the points he would make would be things from the book of Isaiah.
That's very neat. And we have a student in our class named Jeremiah, so he will be glad to know that he had a inspiration. No, I'm just kidding. But that's very cool. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording.